do for the average person to accomplish? I mean, you're not a group of casinos putting up money, and the argument has been, as he's mentioned, that you often need paid signature gathering. How difficult is this for a grassroots organization to accomplish?
It's not an easy process, but we are talking about the Constitution. And so I think this has been a good process because we have now engaged a lot of folks who are tax-paying citizens who have been frustrated and want to know how can they get involved. I think that this could be an example of a new way where grassroots people from the bottom up can have a say. While we're increasing to get more time so that everybody can participate, but just in this small amount of time, the number of signatures we've been able to get from the bottom up, where the everyday citizens, we're at the flea market and citizens are signing and want to get involved, and the person who's getting the signatures at the flea market in Hamilton County had never done that before, and we're at the barber shop and it's the shop talk. And it's not about just voting for a candidate. It's now about your voting rights, and that has become a conversation. So we have spurred a lot of conversation. We have activated a lot of people and shown them, trained them on this process. Many who've never been to a ballot board and understand how that process worked, they were there, they got to see it, they've been through it. Many who's never been through a process of getting it to the Attorney General, they didn't know that these were the steps that had to be taken before, there's a two-step process on signature gathering. And so people are feeling empowered because now they have a chance, they have a voice. And I think one of the things that makes us unique right now in this war on voting rights around the country is that we're the only state right now in the entire country where the everyday citizen has an opportunity to have a voice on this. You don't have to be an elected official. You don't have to be, at the Supreme Court. You, the everyday person, has a chance to get this on the ballot. So it's an empowerment, and I think it's important when we talk about, independence voting Independence Day, as we celebrate Independence Day.
Representative, you said that you wanted this to be a bipartisan movement, but then you just said that there's a war on voting rights. Who is the war with?
There is a war on voting rights of anyone who tries to take away voting rights. When the Voting Rights Act, for example, of 1965, that's where it started. 1965, when we talked about when black, white, and brown, women and men died, shed blood, Edmund Pettus Bridge, all the way to across America, and they got the Voting Rights Act, which we'll be celebrating next year. And to see that 50 years later, the Voting Rights Act, Section 5, deemed unconstitutional, there's a war on voting rights because it's going to take us back to the days when we had to fight and go to jail and blood was shed so that we could have these voting rights. So the new movement now for our generation is to take these rights and make them permanent. And so as we celebrate Dr. King, the dream is under attack when the Voting Rights Act is under attack. So anyone that attacks voting rights, that's what the war is. And so we want to make sure everyday citizens in the next generation never has to deal with this issue again. No more waiting 7 years and hope it gets renewed. No more, oh my goodness, is the Supreme Court going to knock down Voting Rights Act? Let's get it in the Constitution.
So in Ohio, that would be Secretary of State John Husted and the Republican legislature.
Yes, at this time, yes it is. And putting it in the Constitution would trump all of that. And no more playing games with who's in charge. Now, I think it's important to note that after the Bush election, that there was an effort, because Ohio had a black eye on voting. And so there was an effort to create in a bipartisan way, the provisional ballots and the early vote days and souls to the polls and all of this. We want everyone to vote. So it was said. And it was signed into law. But because it was not put in the Constitution, here we are. A decade later, now we're fighting to get those same things that was put together in a bipartisan way.
Representative Reece, this week the NAACP